Hello, I'm Colleen, and here are 10 book series that I wish someone would adapt. With the extreme popularity of Bridgerton, I and a lot of my friends have been discussing other series we wish that Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Apple TV if you must, but I really don't want to have to pay for you, would adapt into series. And so I made a list of my 10 choices that I think would translate well onto the screen. There are some things I don't think that I love, but I don't think would translate well onto the screen. But here are some that I do. These are going to be in no particular order, though I am going to start with the one that I want the most. That is the Seven Waters series by Juliette Marillier. So this is a series near and dear to my heart, and I think the best series I've ever read in my entire life. And it starts with Daughter of the Forest, which you'll see this cover is absolutely destroyed. And I'll tell you why. I had a very nice copy of this that I took really good care of. And then my sister lost it. So I bought it on eBay because this trade paperback version, this like large trade, is not available for sale anymore, so you have to get it used. And it said that there was some wear and tear on the cover, and it's literally covered in pink marker. But, you know, it is what it is. The book is still good, and the spine looks fine minus this on my shelf. This one, which we start off with, is about Saruka, I think is how you say her name, who is the 7th child of a lord, but she has 6 older brothers. So she's not the 7th son of a 7th son, which is a magical thing in her time period, which is, I want to say, like Dark Age Ireland. I think it's like around like 800-ish. Her family is cursed. Her brothers are turned into swans, and she must break this curse by not speaking while she basically makes them shirts out of thorns alone in the woods. This book is wonderful. It is obviously a fairy tale retelling. It does have a trigger warning for sexual assault in here. The thing I like the most about this series is every single one of these books could kind of work as a standalone. So you wouldn't have to worry about it getting canceled or whatever, because you could end it with any of the seasons and readers and viewers would feel satisfied. So the first one is Daughter of the Forest. The second one is Son of the Shadows, which is my best book of all time. It is fantastic. We follow Saruka's daughter, Leodin, as she is kidnapped by a band of traveling warriors to be their healer. This book is fantastic. Read it. The third one is Child of the Prophecy, in which we follow Fanya, I think is how you say her name. And she is the daughter of Leodin's sister, Neve. And I can't really tell you about her without spoiling some stuff in the earlier plot, but she kind of lives outside of society for certain reasons and never really feels welcome in the family. But she's a very good heroine to follow with a very hard life ahead of her. The next 3 books in the series, which I am missing one, which I can't remember who I gave it to, but I'm going to have to do an eBay again to get the matching hardcover, and hopefully it'll look nicer. So that is Heir to Seven Waters, and then the middle one is Seer of Seven Waters, so this is number 4. Seer of Seven Waters, which I'm missing, is number 5, and Flame of Seven Waters, which is number 6. And these follow 3 daughters of Sean, who is Leodin's twin brother, and their sort of stories dealing with magical things happening. I think this series would be amazing with a big budget. Obviously, there's a lot of like falling down castles. There's a lot of fae creatures. There's a lot of great magical stuff happening. And I do think it would be a great adaptation. It would kind of be like if Bridgerton met The Last Kingdom / Vikings. You know, it's a little bit darker, but they don't have the romantic elements in there. Yeah, really good. The next series that I would like to see adapted, but probably won't be because it's too similar to Bridgerton, is kind of like the Lisa Kleypas universe. So Lisa Kleypas is a really prolific romance author, and if you've never read her and you're interested in romance, pick her up. She writes historical, contemporary, and paranormal. My favorites for her are historical through and through. She has 3 book series that kind of all happen in the same universe. And I know there's other book series that are connected too, but these ones are very specifically connected. And they are the Wallflowers, the Hathaways, and then the Ravenels, which the last book in the Ravenels just came out. I would love to see these adapted. They're basically just wonderful Regency love stories, kind of like Bridgerton is. these are the books that made me fall in love with romance novels. I read the Hathaway series first and then read the Wallflowers, even though technically the Wallflower series comes before it, but they're all pretty much around the same time period. The Ravenels is like a next generation, so you meet some of the children of the people in those two series and see what's happening with them. Next, to move away from both historical and fantasy, I would love the Winston Brothers by Penny Reed to be adapted. This is a contemporary romance series that takes place in the Smoky Mountains, and you follow a family, the Winstons, who have 6 brothers and 1 sister, and basically their love stories. There's also a through line about their father, who's not a good guy and was part of like a motorcycle gang, and that gang is still kind of in their lives and trying to break away from it. Penny Reed writes really quirky characters. Everyone has, fun hobbies, and the way they speak is really fun to read. All the books are like Truth or Beard, Beard Science, Grin and Bearded. They all have to do with beards because all the brothers are supposed to have these like amazing beards. I feel like this series could kind of be adapted like Virgin River has been adapted, whereas you're like really getting to know all the people in the town. And Virgin River is kind of odd how they've adapted it though, because we haven't had any closure with any of the relationships, which is usually how romance novels are. We're kind of still following the same relationships, but I could see the Winston brothers sort of like having a season to wrap up everybody's romance. And then they're happy. You want to see your characters happy. Next, I would like to see the Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin adapted. If you haven't read that, which I've only read the first book, I haven't finished it yet. It is a completely brilliant sci-fi story that takes place in the future when earthquakes are basically constant. And the earth is extremely unstable. And there are some people who can sort of control it. And it is a sad story, though. There's a lot of loss and child loss in it, which was kind of hard for me to read, as I read this when my twins were still babies. And so it was a little bit, which is why I haven't finished the series yet, because I thought I needed to put like a little bit more time in between me and that sort of like anxiety you have about your children's lives after they're first born, and probably until they're adults, I would assume, but it gets a little easier every year. So I will eventually finish this series. But when I was reading the first book, all I could think is how cinematic it was when you're reading it, that you can really picture all of these places and like this breaking earth, basically. And the first one is called The Fifth Season. Give it a read. I did own it, but I gave it to one of my neighbors and she never gave it back to me. So I don't have it with me right now. The next series I would want adapted is really problematic and probably just a wish of mine, because I don't think it'll ever happen because of who the author is, and it's with good reason, which I will go into. But that is the Avalon series by Marion Zimmer Bradley and Diana Paxson. I will say there are 3 other books in this series, which I have right here, which are somewhat connected, but not like the original quartet. These were written after Marion Zimmer Bradley died by her daughter-in-law, Diana Paxson. And they are The Ancestors of Avalon, The Sword of Avalon, and The Ravens of Avalon. These original 4 were written by Marion Zimmer Bradley. This one, The Priestess of Avalon, they wrote together because she was pretty elderly at that point. So we start with The Forest House, and then we have The Lady of Avalon, The Priestess of Avalon, and the most famous, which is The Mists of Avalon. These follow sort of like a pre-Christian religion in England. We begin with The Forest House is about the Roman occupation in England and what it's like for the natives there and how they are continuing their religion and their lives. Then we move to Lady of Avalon, which I really like this book if you're into like reincarnation. It's 3 different stories of the same 2 couples who are like soulmates, but like how every single time their lives sort of don't work out, that they are able to be together. I will say, while these books have romance lines in all of them, they are through and through tragedies. They are not happy endings, so don't come to this looking for a happy ending. The next one, The Priestess of Avalon, is about what's her name? Helena, who ends up being the mother of Constantine, and they kind of just put her into the Avalon story. This is my least favorite of the quartet, and then the last, which is my most favorite, is The Mists of Avalon, which is an Arthurian legend retelling through the point of view of the women of the story. So the reason I don't think this will ever get adapted, not because it's huge in scope, which it is, but Marion Zimmer Bradley, who it has been one of my favorite authors for my whole life, so it's difficult to deal with, turned out to be like a really, really horrible person. And after she died, her children came forward that she was like a really horrible child abuser. So I don't think that her stories will be adapted, most likely. It'd be nice if someone adapted it and like all of the proceeds went to abuse victims. That would be amazing, but I'm not thinking that that will happen at any point. Next, to do one more, I have to sneak in one more Regency romance series, and that is Tessa Dare's Girl Meets Duke series, which actually isn't done yet. There's one book that hasn't come out yet. It starts with the Duchess deal, and I absolutely adore these books. They're fantastic. I own them, but they are currently at my sister's house, so I don't have them with me. Tessa Dare is kind of like the funniest Regency romance author, I feel like. Her books are hilarious. They have good modern humor while still being super romantic and realistic-ish, you know, for the time period. She has really fun heroines who always have like really cool hobbies, and her heroes are also fantastic. In her first one, The Duchess deal, we have the Duke of Asbury, is that what it is? And he needs a wife. And basically the seamstress who made the dress his ex-fiance was supposed to wear comes into his office and is like, you have to pay me for this dress. Like, I worked really hard on it, and I don't care that you're not getting married. I need the money. And she's wearing the dress. And he basically says, how about you marry me instead? And then they get married, and we follow their life. And it's beautiful and really well written and so much fun. I've read that book 3 times. I would love if someone adapted this. I feel like if you have a struggling streaming service, you should adapt a Regency romance, because we all know we're gonna watch them, we're gonna subscribe, we're gonna do it. And I don't think Netflix will do another Regency romance until Bridgerton wraps up. So I'm looking at you, Hulu, Apple TV, Peacock, probably not Paramount Plus. I don't know what they do. Next is another series I haven't finished yet, but literally the entire time I was watching this, I was like, someone needs to make this into a series, because the settings alone would be amazing. And that's the Dave Bod Trilogy, which the first one is City of Brass. If you haven't read this, it is a high fantasy series that takes place in like North Africa, the Middle East, but also like a parallel fantasy world, like that's djinn focused. I love this map. I love a good map so much. It's like my favorite thing. But I just imagine when I was reading this, so there's like the city where the magical people live, and when they're describing it, it's like the City of Brass. I just like picture in my brain like how much fun that would be for like a set designer to do. Oh, it'd be amazing. And also you get to do like Cairo in the 1700s, which would be so much fun to design. And I just picture all the costumes. It would be beautiful. So that's a really good one, the City of Brass. And then it's the City of Brass, the Kingdom of Copper, and the Empire of Gold. And I'm probably going to read the second one this summer. This is like a summer read for me. I like doing big fat books in the summer. And I can't wait to see how this wraps up, but also adapt it and make me a beautiful series that I can watch. Thank you. The next series I'd love to see adapted, and my last romance series, I promise, is the Stay a Spell series by Julia Cross. It starts with Wolf Gone Wild, and then we've got Don't Hex and Drive, and then we have Witches Get Stitches, and then there's a Christmas one, Walking in a Witchy Wonderland, and the next 3 last ones of the series will be coming out momentarily. I can't wait. But basically, this is a contemporary paranormal series that takes place in New Orleans that I think would be amazing to be adapted. It is about witches and werewolves and vampires and grims, and it's funny and steamy, and New Orleans would be such a cool setting, because I feel like New Orleans is a really cool city. I love it. I've only been there once, but I thought it was fantastic. And it feels kind of like the most magical place in the United States, I feel like. That's like a city. That's not like a forest. Because, I mean, a lot of our cities are pretty new. And the French flair and like the whole Creole culture and Cajun culture gives, you know, a lot of character to New Orleans. So it's like a character in its own right. And I would love to see this adapted. I also really like paranormal series when they're done well. So if you're looking for one, Netflix, Hulu, whoever, do this one. So my next two series choices are both series that are made up of kind of like novellas. And the first is The Wayward Children by Sean and McGuire. I've been reading those from the library, and I feel like it's a really cool world. There's this idea that children have been able to go to other worlds, kind of like Alice in Wonderland and Narnia, but then what happens to them when they come back? And what happens is they can't readjust to our society, so they go live at this school, and there, at least, they're with a bunch of people who understand what they've been through and why they want to get back to their other worlds so badly. I feel like it'd be really cool to get to like design these worlds. Plus, the plots are great and the characters are fantastic. And yeah, it's like, you know, school stories are really popular, but this one's like way darker, but still fantastic. And then lastly, this is kind of a weird one because I have a very specific way I'd like to see this adapted, is The Singing Hills Cycle by Niveau. And so 2 are out so far, but there are going to be more. And basically these are short novels in which a monk collects stories from people. And I think this would be so cool animated, kind of in the sense of like, you know, like either like Song of the Sea or... what's that called? The Secret of Kells. They're like sort of like, or like that movie Loving Vincent, or even like Studio Ghibli, like Princess Mononoke, where it's like really high art animation. I could really picture this series doing very well in like a high art animation sense, because it's folklore, so there are some things that, you know, like, you know, a monk speaking with tigers, which would be hard to do in live action, but I think would be phenomenal animated if that could happen. I'd love it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you feel the same way about some of these series, because if we can get a petition going, then we could maybe make it happen. No, I mean, obviously books are made into series for all different reasons, and it'd be great if some of these happened, though. I'd love it. I love it so much. What's your number one series you want to see adapted? Mine is the Seven Waters series. That's my number one. But all of the other 9 on this list are things that I think would be phenomenal for the screen. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you soon.